Good evening, fantasy football managers. We are halfway through the season and the playoff race is beginning to heat up. Well, for some of the teams, anyways. Scott seems to be a lock to make it and Kerry and Van seem to be a lock to miss out. For Van, this is nothing new, having never tasted the sweet reward of cashing a check at the end of the season. Kerry, last year's runner-up, has to be reeling and feeling the disappointment. Just look at it this way, sir, last year was the fluke, and you are back to your old ways this season. I mean, anyone can win one season. Look at Tony and Dan. Anyways, the two of you still have to fight to keep the right to name your own teams next year. Let's take a look at the biggest matchup of the week, the Shuffle versus Show Me Your TDs. This matchup comes down to one player, Chris Johnson. After creating a huge uproar in a trade earlier this season, one that pretty much silenced the entire league, Chris Johnson had his best game in years. Maybe he just needed a manager who believed in him. For one game, anyways. He scored 35 points and pretty much told Justin he could kiss his ugly black ass. This game could have easily been much worse as the Titans started giving touchdowns to other running backs in the second half. Aaron Rodgers also continued his solid play, scoring 29 points and taking the lead as fantasy's #1 player. On a side note, is there an uglier dude in football? I mean, maybe Terrell Suggs, but his teeth don't look like this. This guy needs a toothbrush and some toothpaste. And if these are gold-plated, then he seriously needs to go have them buffed out. Nasty? Just plain nasty. Justin was once again led by rookie sensation RG3, with 20 points. Scoring 114 points and losing is rough, especially when the total was higher than every other team this week. This loss drops the Shuffle into a 5-way tie with the other 4 and 3 teams. Let's see if this week's trades make a difference heading towards the playoffs. Our next matchup had the Monkeys handing the Onage Award to Casey's Northern Cal squad. After losing his first game of the season, Scott came back with a 113-point performance backed by Breeze, Peterson and Gower. These three guys are easily the best 1, 2, 3 tandem in the league right now. Midway through the season and Scott leads the league in scoring, averaging 108 points per game while allowing just 83, which also leads the league. Surprisingly enough, he only holds a one-game lead over one of the league's worst-scoring teams, Token Negro. For Casey, this season started by missing the draft and has just been nothing far from a disaster afterwards. Tony Romo and Steve Smith have just had awful seasons so far and have failed to contribute when needed. Ryan Matthews was injured and then was not allowed to touch the ball inside the red zone. Aaron Hernandez got hurt early. Apparently you have a short fuse with players, as both have been shipped off to other teams. You have faced the second most points in the league this season in the first half, so let's hope the second half is a bit kinder to you, because at 2 and 5, you were also in a battle for your team name. Tim pulled out a fairly easy victory this week behind Jordy Nelson's 22 points. Ryan Fitzpatrick subbed in for Peyton Manning and scored 17 points. He has worked hard all year to find a new home for Reggie Bush and Larry Fitzgerald. Almost as hard as Rich tried finding a new home for Matt Ryan. Luckily, time is on our sides at the moment and both men found a place to ditch their guys. This win pulls Tim to 4 and 3 and right in the middle of the playoff hunt, with a big trade behind him hoping to pay huge dividends. This season could not be going worse for Kerry. After scoring just 69 points, he falls to 1 and 6 and is the third lowest scoring team in the league. Top draft picks have not paid off and have subsequently been dumped. When the defense has been your highest scoring position all season, things are bad. Hopefully this week's trade helps to right some wrongs on your roster. At 1 and 6, you are in the lead for having any team naming privileges revoked. Somebody please tell me how a team starting players like Daryl Richardson, Felix Jones, Donnie Avery and Randall Cobb wins a game and scores 96 points. Only 3 players in the starting lineup were actually drafted by Token Negro, yet they win and jump into second place at 5 and 2. You have to believe that everyone's luck runs out sometime, But when your quarterback's name actually is Luck, maybe the rules bend in your favor. With Victor Cruz leading the way with another spectacular season, who knows what will happen with this team? Everyone else is seeming to step up when needed. As I mentioned earlier, keeping it real is having an abysmal season. Falling to 1-5-1, they are just half a game out of last place. Injuries have been tough, and it doesn't help to have backups like Kendall Hunter just one injury away from starting next week. It looks like a solid trade for this team to acquire a young and gunning quarterback as well as a solid running back to replace MJD. The hole is deep and the new names are already being tossed around. Tony, please take a good look at the picture behind me. This is the guy you have starting for you on bye weeks and for injured players. Does he look like a football player? I didn't think so. As a matter of fact, I kinda think he looks a lot like Pee Wee Herman. You have Pee Wee freaking Herman starting at running back for you. And you still won. By 16 no less. Simply amazing. You were somehow 4-3 and in the thick of the playoff hunt with nearly half the league. Whatever you are doing, keep it up. Hell, start Pee Wee Herman again this week, it's not like it matters, right? After a 2-0 start, the SoCal Trojans look to be just as mediocre as the rest of the 4-3 teams. I have to give it to you, though, you had the biggest balls of the week. You started a defense against the Saints. The same Saints whose quarterback is Drew Brees. The same Drew Brees who has not been kept out of the end zone for the past, 4 years. I guess it didn't really matter too much, as your team was horrible this week, outside of Vincent Jackson's great 34-point performance. I hope you get over the fact that you lost to Pee Wee Herman last week. In the battle of, I'll trade you all my players if you trade me all yours, Rich defeated Jason by just 4 points, scoring over 100 for the first time this season. With 3 straight wins, our league's second lowest scoring team is climbing back into the hunt. At 3-1. It doesn't hurt that you used Josh Freeman at the perfect time, gaining 36 points from him. Attribute this win to the waiver wire. Hard to do on a weekly basis, but when you are paying attention, it can work. Despite the loss, Jason is just a game back from the rest of the mid-level playoff hunt pack. At this point, who would have ever believed that Dez Bryant would be your worst receiver, behind the likes of Jeremy Curley and Andre Roberts? Bryant is putting up a turd of a season, to go with his turd of an attitude. What are the odds you draft this guy next season? I'd say slim and none. You have a solid team and should continue to rebound from your 1-3 start. But not this week. This week, you were a loser.